They didn't just smash my bike. They smashed the only thing I owned that made me feel free, that made me feel safe. The laughter echoed through the school courtyard as I stood there frozen, staring at the twisted metal-torn seat and dangling brake lines. Someone had spray-painted the word "Cry Baby" across the frame in red. I could hear a phone camera click behind me. Another memory for them to laugh at. Another moment to prove I was nothing more than their favorite toy to break. My name is Haley Tran. I'm 17. I ride a cheap sky blue bike to school every day. Or I did. I live with my grandma and we don't have a car. That bike, it wasn't flashy or expensive, but it was mine. I had saved up babysitting money for almost a year to buy it. I decorated it with little sunflower stickers. I named it Sunny. Yeah, I know, lame, but it was mine. It happened after last period on Thursday. The final bell rang and I was excited. It was my favorite day of the week. Grandma always made fried tofu for dinner, and I had plans to ride to the park after. I walked into the bike lot like always. Then I saw the crowd. A small group of students stood around something, laughing and pointing. I pushed through, not expecting much. Maybe someone fell. Maybe it was just a joke. But there it was! Sunny mangled on the pavement like roadkill. The front tire was bent inward like a crumpled soda can. The seat had been slashed. The handlebar grips were gone. Paint was smeared across the frame. Someone had taken a bat or a crowbar to the whole thing and left it on display like a sick piece of performance art. Guess she's walking home now. Someone chuckled. Then I heard it. That voice. Let's watch her cry again. It was Brielle. Tall, beautiful, and mean to the core. Captain of the volleyball team. She had it all and she hated me. Why? Because last semester I accidentally got paired with her crush for a group project. I didn't flirt. I didn't even talk to him that much. But jealousy doesn't care about truth. Ever since then, she made it her mission to break me little by little. She succeeded today. I turned away as the tears welled up. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. But I wouldn't give them the show. Not this time. So I bit the inside of my cheek, turned my back to them, and started walking. Slowly. Broken inside, but pretending to be okay. I told myself it was just a bike. But deep down, I knew it was much more than that. The first time Brielle spoke to me, she smiled. That was before everything. Before the rumors, the notes on my locker, the constant dread. I actually thought she was being nice. It was the second week of junior year. I had just transferred after moving in with Grandma. New kid. No friends. Just my bike, a few thrift store clothes, and a pencil case full of hope. We were in history class when Mr. Bell paired me with Jason Lynn for a group project. He was one of those guys, charming, athletic, and totally out of my league. I barely spoke to him. I did the slides he presented. That was it. But Brielle didn't see that. She saw me as a threat. A week later, I found a sticky note inside my locker. Keep your trashy hands off him. I thought it was a prank. I laughed it off. That was my first mistake. It started small. Whispers behind my back. Gum on my seat. Someone tripping me in the hallway. The kind of stuff you convince yourself you imagined. The kind of cruelty that wears a pretty face and says, "Oops, sorry," when a water bottle accidentally spills down your shirt. Then came the more creative stuff. Someone filled my shoes with ketchup during gym. They signed me up to sing at the talent show without telling me. They stole my math homework and turned it in with crude drawings all over it. I knew who it was. Everyone did. But no one said anything. Not even the teachers. Brielle was untouchable straight-A's volleyball MVP, daughter of the PTA president. And me, I was just the quiet girl who rode her dorky bike and ate lunch alone under the tree behind the cafeteria. Every time something happened, I told myself to just get through the day. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of breaking me, but I was breaking, in ways no one could see. I'd go home and pretend everything was fine. Smile at Grandma, do my chores, finish my homework, cry in the shower so no one would hear. I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't want help, but because I didn't think anyone would care. And honestly, I didn't want to make things worse. But watching my bike lie in ruins, something snapped. It wasn't just the metal and rubber, it was every ounce of effort I had put into surviving this year. Every second, I bit my tongue. Every insult I swallowed. Every bruise I hid. That wreckage was a mirror. It showed me exactly what they thought of me. Nothing. Less than nothing. And for the first time, I didn't just feel sad. I felt angry. I skipped school the next day. Told Grandma I had cramps. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a cup of warm tea and rubbed my back with her calloused fingers. The kindness in her touch made my chest ache worse than the bruises I hid. But I didn't rest. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling as the events of the day before looped through my head like a cruel movie. The sound of Brielle's laugh. The bent frame of my bike. The words, "Let's watch her cry again." That wasn't a joke. That was a goal. It wasn't enough for them to mess with me. They wanted to see me break. They wanted proof. And I had given it to them again and again. Every time I walked away. Every time I kept my head down. Every time I pretended it didn't hurt. I thought I was being strong, but all I was doing was making it easy. The worst part wasn't even the bullying. It was how invisible it made me feel. At school, I was the ghost people bumped into and never apologized to. Teachers forgot my name. Students called me that bike girl. I could have vanished completely, and I don't think anyone would have noticed except to ask who was going to be their next target. By lunch, I opened my phone. Big mistake. The video had made its way onto Snap Story. A short clip of me standing beside the broken bike, my shoulders trembling, my hand over my mouth. You couldn't see my tears, but you could feel them. Caption: Crybaby got wrecked. Bike funeral. Hundreds of views. Dozens of laughing reactions. Comments like, "She should thank us, that bike was hideous." LMFAO. Someone sponsor her a tricycle. She's probably crying into her grandma's soup right now. I locked my phone and threw it across the room. I wanted to disappear. But even more than that, I wanted them to feel what I felt. I wanted Brielle to understand what it was like to be crushed publicly with no one to defend you. I stared out the window at the empty street, my hands curled into fists. I wasn't the kind of girl who got revenge. I wasn't bold or cruel or clever. But maybe I didn't need to be. Maybe I just needed to be tired enough. Tired of silence. Tired of waiting for someone else to save me. No one was coming. And if I wanted to take back my dignity, my name, my voice, I had to become someone different. Not a victim. Not a ghost. Someone they'd remember. It was Monday when I found the video. Not the one of me crying next to my broken bike. I'd already seen that. This one was different. It was raw, unedited, taken by one of Brielle's friends probably before they planned to post it to their close friend's story. The title, R.I.P. Sunny the Bike. They actually named the video. It opened with Brielle holding a bat. She was laughing breathless as she circled my bike like a predator. "You think she'll cry again?" one of the voices said behind the camera. "She always does," Brielle replied. "Let's make it worse this time." Then crack! She swung. Metal bent. More laughter. Another swing. They took turns. Someone even poured soda all over the seat like it was a joke. Like it wasn't mine. Like it wasn't real. I watched it over and over, hand clutched over my mouth. They hadn't just destroyed my bike. They had enjoyed it. They'd turned it into sport, a group activity, entertainment. I should have felt devastated, but all I felt was heat. In my chest, in my cheeks, behind my eyes. They wanted to make me cry again. Fine. But they didn't get to laugh this time, so I got to work. That afternoon, I borrowed my neighbor's old DSLR. He was a college student home for the semester. I told him I was filming for a school project. Half true. He gave it to me without question. Then I started collecting things. Screenshots, Snapchats, comments, the raw video, time-stamped proof. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing: I needed an audience. Not just my classmates. Everyone. I made a private account on TikTok. No name, no face, just a username at @thegirlwiththebike. I uploaded a slideshow of the broken frame, the smashed tires, the sticker that still read Sunny. Then I added captions. This was mine. They broke it. Not for fun, for views. Because I cried once. That was enough. This is what happens when you're quiet too long. I paired it with soft, eerie music. No hashtags. No bait. Just truth. By midnight, it had 10,000 views. The comments were flooding in. Who did this? This is messed up. I want names. This isn't funny. The fact that they laughed post the full video. Let's expose them. I wasn't ready yet, but I would be. One more day. I didn't sleep that night. I wasn't tired anymore. I was awake. The next morning, I woke up to 63,000 views. My phone buzzed non-stop notifications. DMs, reposts. The school had already caught wind. People were talking in the halls in group chats under desks during homeroom. Rumors swirled like wildfire, but no one had confirmation. Not yet. That's when I dropped the full video. I posted it anonymously on my TikTok and tagged it with a single caption. This is what they did. This is who they are. Then I walked into school with my head held higher than ever. The looks I got, wide eyes, hushed gasps, teachers pulling students aside, were electric. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Everyone else was saying it for me. In third period, Brielle didn't show up. By lunch, the clip had hit over 300,000 views. People started piecing it together. Brielle's voice was unmistakable. Her friends were recognizable in the background. Even the one holding the camera was identified by their bracelet. No one could deny it now. Even the school couldn't. An emergency assembly was announced for the end of the day. Principal Hammond looked visibly shaken as he spoke. There has been an incident involving student property bullying and public humiliation. We are investigating the matter thoroughly. He didn't say names, but he didn't have to. When I walked through the cafeteria doors later, it was dead silent. Every eye followed me. Not in mockery, but in recognition. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer the girl behind the broken bike. I was the girl who exposed them. Someone had printed screenshots of the TikTok comments and taped them on lockers. Brielle deserves to be suspended. This girl's a legend. Where's her apology? Hope they cry like she did. And then, as if fate were playing director, Brielle walked in. Her face was pale. Her eyes rimmed red. Her perfect bun undone. She froze when she saw me. People stepped away from her path like she was radioactive. No one laughed. No one defended her. Her power had drained in less than 24 hours. She walked up to me slowly, her lips trembling. You think you're so smart, don't you? I didn't answer. I've lost everything because of you. I looked her dead in the eye. You earned it. For the first time since I'd known her, Brielle didn't have a comeback. She just stood there trembling while the whole cafeteria watched. Then she turned and ran. A teacher followed her out. I sat down at a table in the middle of the room, the one no one ever let me sit at before. And no one told me to move. I pulled out my sketchbook and started to draw. This time not to escape, but to document the day I took my voice back. By the end of the week, Brielle and 2 of her friends were suspended. Not permanently, but long enough that they wouldn't be at the upcoming Spirit Rally volleyball tournament or homecoming court vote. Her parents tried to fight the decision, of course, claimed the video was taken without context, said it was a harmless joke, said I was provoking their daughter. But it didn't work, because this time the entire school had seen the truth. I became a kind of quiet legend. Not the kind that craved attention. I still kept my head down in class. I still sat by the window in English and turned in my homework early. But something about me had changed. I didn't shrink when someone made eye contact. I didn't flinch when people passed too close behind me. And most importantly, I didn't feel alone anymore. A few girls I barely knew started sitting with me at lunch. They didn't ask questions, just sat nearby and offered quiet company. One even said, "That was brave what you did," before walking away like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It meant everything. And the messages online kept pouring in. I went through something like this. Thank you for sharing. I wish I had spoken up when I had the chance. You gave me courage. I cried the night I read that last one. Not out of sadness, but because it made everything, the bike, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, feel like it meant something. Principal Hammond eventually called me into his office. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no. I didn't want to drag it out. I didn't want courtrooms or more videos or more attention. I had already gotten what I needed. I got my voice back. And Brielle, she came back 2 weeks later. Quieter. Meeker. She avoided me completely, sat near the back of every classroom, and never looked anyone in the eye. People didn't worship her anymore. They didn't fear her either. They pitied her. The school set up an anonymous bullying report line shortly after. They called it the Sunny Project. I didn't ask them to name it after my bike, but they did anyway. Grandma helped me buy a new one. It wasn't the same. Nothing could replace Sunny. But I still smiled when I rode it for the first time. Not because it was shiny or fast or new, but because this time, I wasn't riding away from something. I was riding towards something else. Freedom, truth, power, peace, and the unshakable knowledge that even the quietest girl can make the loudest noise when she finally decides to stop crying and start fighting back. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Silence doesn't make them stop, it makes them stronger. I thought if I kept my head down, stayed out of the way, they'd eventually get bored and move on. But bullies don't look for reasons. They look for permission. Every tear I hid, every insult I swallowed gave them more. It wasn't revenge that changed things. It was truth. The moment I stopped hiding and showed the world what they did, the power shifted. Not because I became someone else, but because I finally stood up for the person I already was. To anyone being bullied right now, you are not weak. You are not alone. And you are never too small to fight back in your way in your time. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak, even if your voice shakes, especially if it does.